We are talking about maps, and everybody uses maps these days. You've got Google Maps, you've got Apple Maps, you've even got Bing Maps for the 13 of you out there who actually use Bing. Yes, that is a thing. Yeah, but within the context of real estate, Liz and Gina are here, and we are going to talk about maps for property.
Yes,
And
yes,
okay,
absolutely.
Liz, you have actually brought in some visual exhibits and everything, and I am actually amazed, to be completely honest with you, at how simple and, dare I say, like a little bit crude these maps are and everything like that. I mean, they're not exactly topographical.
To you, it's crude.
Yeah.
To us,
to you, they're critical.
This critical,
Yeah.
and it tells a story.
Okay. Yeah. Well, please
This tells
explain.
the
I would love to
story.
hear about this.
So with maps, whenever we're doing a listing, whether we're going to put a property on the market or when we're actually selling a piece of property, we always want to look at the map to figure out, number one, if they're listing it, what are they actually listing, verifying the size of the lot and the shape of the lot. And if it's a vacant piece, we want to know, is it all usable? Because based on the map that you have on the screen right now, if there is a dotted line, it takes away, and there are several, so depending on which property you're using, that will determine how much usable space. So for example, if that dotted line took up a big space there, then your net usable space. So for this particular piece, your net usable space is critical, because if your objective is to build a big home, can you build a big home on this piece of property? So you want to see, is the dotted line an easement for the next lot? Is it a utility easement for the government? So usually in a map, it'll show what is the purpose of that dotted line. But for a potential owner, a potential buyer, you cannot build up. So if you're using your setback guidelines for the property, you cannot use that for your piece. So your setbacks would be normally from the dotted line. You cannot build up to, you cannot encroach onto that dotted line.
Now I'm learning a lot because, again, as two-dimensional and flat and as simple as this map is and everything like that, this, to your line of work, Gina, conveys a heck of a lot of information.
Yeah,
Yes.
it absolutely does. And so what Liz is talking about is, the dotted lines, but before we even get into that, what we ask is, when customers come to us and they tell us what their intended use is, that is so important. So what is what were you thinking of doing with this property? And we need to take a look at it to make sure that what their intended use is, that you can actually pull that off on the lot. So with this particular property, the funky shaped flag lot on the top, which to me, it shows me that
And that is a technical term for that, the funky shaped flag lot.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
it's so much
Very
easier
nice.
to understand.
You and your industry terms.
So, so the intended use for that property was that they wanted to build, I wanted to build 2 or 3 houses on that piece.
Aha.
So I went to the surveyor and I said, just cut it up into 2, because that lot, the odd shaped property is 3,000 square meters. And I already knew in the location I'm in, where this property physically sits, I can technically cut it up into 1/4 acre lots. I know that because I know the law, I know the regulations. So I said, well, you know what? I don't want 1/4 acre. Just give me 2 pieces. Cut it up into 2. I'm going to buy it and I'm going to build 2 houses. So my surveyor said, yeah, absolutely, no problem. So he gives me the sketch so I can sign off to get the process of getting the map recorded, a new map recorded. And while we were sitting there, I looked at it and I could tell the shape was odd. But this paints a story, but the details aren't fully there for us, right?
Exactly, because
Right.
I'm looking at this and I'm like, there aren't any, symbols or lines that would indicate, elevation or...
Yeah, those are different. Those
it's
are
a separate
separate.
map.
That's-
There is another map.
That's
pay-
hardcore topography
Yes.
right there.
Pay for
Yes.
that separately. That's not part of the
of the
normal
scope.
scope of work.
Thank you for setting that
But
up.
let me
sorry.
finish my train of thought on that. So he said, Gina, you can cut it up into 2, easy, no problem. And then I asked the magic question, well, I'm going to build on this. So I know you can cut it up into 2, but can I still build houses on it? He said, not really. So I said, wait a minute. Okay, what do you mean not really? And he said, well, no, because then you see the shape is really odd, and it's quite narrow in some parts of this property.
But if you own the land, isn't that your prerogative?
No, I have to follow the law.
You have to follow the setbacks.
Remember, the government's not there to serve you. You're there to serve the government, or at least that's
true.
how it feels sometimes. Yeah. So that's exactly what he told me. He said, no. He said, no, Gina, you can't build 2 houses because, he said, well, the regulations won't allow it. Then what's the point in me paying you to cut it up into 2 properties? Well, that's what you asked me to do. So it's really important, and this goes to people not just buying property. What if you already own it and you want to cut it up? Remember, we brought this up before.
And this potentially saved you tens of thousands of dollars had you actually...
$2,500 to be exact, because I didn't have to pay to
But just think about it.
Subdivide
She's a licensed professional. She knows her stuff. And she asked the question, if you went...
I'm an idiot.
They would have just cut the property up, and then your intent you would not fulfill the intent of the purpose of the survey.
I wasted. You would have
wasted the money. So asking questions, what is the objective? It's always like, what is your objective, and can my objective be accomplished if I cut the lot? So if Gina did cut that, she would have had to build a funky-looking house to accomplish the regulations. We always have to meet those regulations.
Yeah, you know, technically I can build on it, but like Liz said, it would be like a container size home.
Oh, one of those weird ones?
It has to be really odd. And we see some buildings like in Tumon. There's that one building in Tumon that's kind of funky.
Andrew Lloyd Webber made a whole career out of doing that, though. But, I mean, it is possible.
Yes, but that wasn't my intention.
Probably not practical.
I don't want to make a statement. I want to build a home that my kids could live in.
But when you build funky, though, the use and the access, it's obtrusive. There's usually an issue. So making it more efficient, is a better way of utilizing the lot. So you left it as one
I ended up just leaving it as well. I mean, maybe later down the road, I will figure out what to do. I can get creative. But right now, my goal was just to build a normal home. Yeah.
Okay, so you brought up the people that actually create these maps. That's a very lucrative profession.
Well,
and obviously these maps,
the surveyors.
They have to be stamped, they have to be certified and everything. Who actually puts this together so that I, as a property owner, I have the reassurance that when this is being done, it's completely legitimate?
Well, you have to hire a certified surveyor. Not anyone can go out there, and some people may have hired people who have done the legwork to identify where the points are, but your map is critical to get a registered land surveyor. And they use usually references in order to determine where your points are.
Those little discs we put in, like you showed.
Or they find your old rebars, mahons as they call it, and they identify where they are and they mark them off. But then they would certify your map. So again, a surveyor's in just marking the points is critical and showing what another type of map is an as-built.
This is what this is.
Yeah, an as-built actually shows the condition of the lot. Are there any hindrances in the lot? Is there a concrete wall? Because they would put a notation.
Tell you what, I want to find all about as-builds, but that is way too much information to get done in this segment. But we are going to do part two.
Part two.
So we're going to close the show at least right now. If you're on YouTube, jump over, watch the next video, because we're going to tell you about as-built properties, part 2.